So if you enjoyed part one of our river lecture, this is part two. And in this episode, we're not just talking about it, we're going to get down the river. And you'll hear my brother talk about some of the stuff that stands out to him about the lower Westfield and some of the stuff that really sticks out to me on a historical level. Some pretty cool surprises. So I hope you enjoy.
We are living in an area that people have been living in for 15, 20,000 years. Give it another click, Rach. We see immediately red maples. We'll move through this. You can talk about it. And then, right, we're barely on the river, and bam.
Well, red maple. So you can tap any maple tree. The typical thing about tapping red maples, just sugar maples, but red maples, you can get maple syrup out of. It just, you need to get like 100 gallons to make 1 gallon of syrup. Sugar maples, it's about 40 to 1. So it's a lot better. This guy, because I know we're kind of running out of time here. This bird, there are more bald eagles that are nesting in the Connecticut River Valley at this point than anywhere else in the state of Massachusetts. Which is interesting because they were reintroduced up in Quabbin, but they moved west to here. These are birds that are 3.5, 4 feet tall, 8.5, 8 foot wingspan, big birds. Great heron. By the way, both of these birds were impacted by DDT back in the 50s and 60s. Their populations plummeted, and that's why we have to reintroduce a lot of these. We grew up in the Berkshires going Otis and all this stuff. We didn't see these birds hardly at all.
Saw once in a while.
Occasionally, or
Never saw baldy.
now we see both of them.
Now you're at Walmart. They're doing a pool like
I was over with my wife over at the Stebbins Wildlife Refuge in Long Meadow, the flats, right? And you go over the flats. This was a few years ago when everything was down. It was hardly any water in the pond. One of these birds had caught an eel that was probably that long, and it was in its mouth. It was trying to get them down, because these things will swallow things that are bigger than their face. And it swallowed it from
me and Steve throughout the fish, and we catch and release. These guys don't catch and release.
They do not.
The heron one.
So we're coming down the river. We did a little monkeying around with the camera to get river shots, and another click. Mergansers, Steve?
Common mergansers.
All over the place.
These are, so there's 3 different kinds of mergansers in the country, in New England. One is found in the ocean, and one is found in ponds. This guy really is found in rivers. If you go to the Connecticut River, you see a bunch of these, but you also see them right in the Westfield River, and these are fish-eating ducks. And you can tell that by that bill. Get that really pointy bill, and then they're grabbing, and it's hard for the fish to get away because just have the bill.
Nasty.
Kingfisher. Now, unlike a lot of birds, the female is actually a better looking bird. So when you see a picture of a kingbird, a kingfisher, often you see this bird, which is a female.
Really?
It's the male. Yep.
You making this up, or is it
So, but look at this up here. They don't just eat fish, and I told you, like, they swallow something bigger than their head. That thing is huge compared to
crawdad.
And he's eating a crawfish. They don't have teeth, so it's swallowing that crawfish whole.
Do the cough. They got a cool cough.
I can't do that well, man. I can play it on my phone.
I've heard him do it.
Sycamores are all over the place, and they're huge, but these are called riparian species. Riparian species mean they only grow in and around rivers. And most of the things we're going to see, as far as plants are concerned, are either wetland obligates or riparians. Wetland obligates mean they have to have a wet area to grow.
These suckers are all over the Westfield River drainage, and you can tell them, they look like a birch when you see the top of them. They're very white up top. They get massive leaves too. Their leaves are as big as bigger than dinner plate.
These are their seed pods. I always remember their name because they kind of look sick. Sycamore.
Yeah, they look like they're peeling, like they got sunburned.
But they didn't even do it massive. I seen like that. It was bad.
Yeah, and we have them in our river. Now, consider that between the roads and the river and the railroad and the river, there's been no logging. There's been no human interference since the Western Railroad was put through. And the Western Railroad was laid in the mid-1830s, so 1835, 36. All those trees that are growing down there have been left alone for all that time, and that's kind of cool to think about. Go ahead, Rich.
Here's a bird. If you walk the railroad tracks, you can find dozens and dozens of these.
Tell them how they can get it to come to their yard.
I almost put a picture of it.
Okay.
If you live anywhere near water, all you got to do is take a nail and cut an orange in half and nail something an orange to a tree.
He said this to me, and I didn't believe him. I
Or,
was like, he's making this
If
up.
you
So
have
I did it.
if you have a suet feeder,
20
cut them in
minutes
half and
later,
just
we'll
stick it
have
in
my
the
arm.
suet feeder, and you got these guys showing up. We've been doing this for years, and actually my wife just put this out on Tuesday, and as soon as she put it out,
20 minutes later,
we have Orioles on.
Same thing with me.
So again, section
look at the
number
watches
one,
on
here's
every
your
20
female, and here's your male, and so usually it's the male that's more colorful, almost always, but in this case it's true as well. I live right across from the high school in the golf course, so the closest water is the ponds on the golf course. So I'm about 400 yards away from the golf course. You don't have to be real close, but they typically will. They make a pendulum nest. You know, think of a cup nest.
Teardrop.
They think of a cup nest sitting in between branches. They actually take a branch and weave stuff around it so it hangs below and they actually enter from here and go down. And these usually hang over water, but they'll forage, within maybe a quarter of a mile around water.
So, silver maple real quick.
Another wetland obligate species. So we have two different maple trees that need or like to be around swamps, marshes. In this case, riverine system.
Yep.
Wide area.
So now we move down the river until we're maybe, I don't know, where, I think it's called Almond Ave in West Springfield. Almond Ave comes down this hill.
Yep.
And then maybe 100 yards south of Almond Ave, this is where this is. And what we're at, Rachel is going to give it another click. From Google Earth, you can see this very, very clearly. Do you know what you're looking at? Don't say anything, Steve. Don't give it away. You see that? You're looking at it, it's a pile of rocks. You might call that a trickle dam. A bunch of kids must have built that so they could go swimming, right? Give it another click, Rach. That right there is called a fish weir. What you're looking at is a prehistoric fish weir built by the Amerindians, and it's probably thousands of years old. Give it another click, Rach. So you can see me standing on it, because this was one of the reasons I went down there. When I was sophomore, junior in high school, we had really cold weather, 1980. Wicked cold winter. I'm from Western Mass, I said wicked. Got on my skates with my buddies. We got on our skates on the Westfield River at the river bend. And we started skating. And I grew up ice fishing, so I know my ice. In fact, in the winter, I go by the name the Ice Cat.
The only person he called he called himself that.
So I'm going down the river on the skates, and the waterfalls are fun. There was 8 inches of ice on the Westfield River. The waterfalls were like something out of like the Winter Olympics. You could skate over a waterfall. It was still 2 inches thick. If you're skating, you can just zip right over it. And we're going down, and I'm looking under the water as I'm going, because it's black, clear ice, and I'm looking at these piles of rocks that are clearly human piles of rocks. And I'm going, this is weird stuff. What's going on here? Now, I thought trickle dams at the time, and then I went to college and I got my master's degree, my undergraduate degree in history with the specialty of the Amerindians, right? So this is kind of my ball game. And I remember a kid I had in class, Charlie Pignataire, lives on, used to own an auto shop, an auto shop in West Springfield, right on the riverbed. His son was in my class, and I ended up grabbing my canoe and going down the river and checking, and I'm looking at a fish weir. You're going to see it again. Go give it a quick race. So looking at fish weirs, these are identified fish weirs on the Cumberland River, on the Tennessee River. These are archaeological and they're significant. They've been marked. The states have basically cataloged them. Give me another click, Rage. This one is in West Virginia. This one is on the Potomac River up by Harper's Ferry. These are FISH WEIRS, authentic prehistoric history sites, right? Okay. I'm going to show you. Keep going. Give it another click, Rage. Okay, this one is in Hardwick, Mass, on the Ware River. See that? That's Google Earth. Give it another click, Rage. And here's what a fish weir is. The Amerindians build a dam of rock, and they adjust the current of the river. Now, when the river is in flood stage, right, the river's moving in the early spring, it's high, right? I can stand on that with a spear or a net. And the fish, as they come up the current, like to get into little areas where they can rest. That means standing here, I can spear them here, and I can spear them here, or I can net them here, or I can net them there. The fish then continue up the river and have their babies, and then come back down the river, and they come through this V. And that V has got a basket. Rachel clicks it again. You can see the fish trap. They grab fish coming back, and to the table those fish go. Give it another click, Rach, and you can see me with the drone getting up in the air, and again, up in the air again. You can see how clear that is. It is unmistakable. Give it one more. Absolutely, 100%, and there's not just one of them. I'm telling you, there's about 4 of them. But there's been a lot of sedimentation from the farm fields in Westfield and Russell, and so there's sand, which is actually good because it's preserved them. So this is out in front, like Robinson State Park. There's an access just south of there. So you can get to it from West Springfield. You've got to go across the railroad tracks. But from Agawam, you can get to this from Robinson State Park walking up the river. And it's unmistakable. And it hasn't been cataloged. And it's sitting there. Beautiful. So this is a piece of West Springfield's real history, authentic history, history that brings us back to the ancient world, when the Amerindians came and lived without us. And you can imagine what happens as time goes by. I mean, this has clearly been used for years and years. There's a lot of rocks piled. If you were to go back, and I don't want you to go back, but you saw some of those other ones were nowhere near as wide as this. You can see how wide this is, suggesting that it was used for century after century by the native people. And we know Mitniag, right? Mitniag Park, Mitniag. It means abandoned fields, right?
It means what?
Abandoned fields.
Abandoned
field.
Abandoned
So, yeah, fields. All over our area, right? This is a good one people don't know. But Westfield, Greenfield, Hatfield. Go down the list. How many fields are there around here? Deerfield. There were ordinances in all the river towns. You can't cut trees within 10 miles of the river because it was all fields, right? Fields. Because the Amerindians used fire. They burned, usually in May, April. They'd light the understory on fire. It would make it easier for them to hunt. They also practiced slash and burn farming. So
there's a really good article, by the way, in the state of Massachusetts puts out a magazine, ecological magazine, quarterly. And there was one in the spring issue all about burning and how the Amerindians used to do that and how they're doing this in restoring places like Stebbins and
South
the place South Lake, the place up in Hadley.
There's species that live in New England that are endangered now because we haven't had real forest fires in New England in a few hundred years. And like the red pine, there are red pine around, but there's not many. Red pine need fire in order for their pine cone to release seeds. So the red pine that are around have been planted and transplanted. They didn't grow naturally, most likely, unless you're up on Tacoma Mountain in Westfield, which has a forest fire every 10 years. Because it's the hill towns and people are hoping they'll all burn down. I'm joking. I love the hill towns. But, there you go. I mean, if you guys, any of you want to take a walk down to the river, that's waiting for you. And especially, the thing to think about with the Westfield River is it has a very, very variable river height. because it's got a narrow drainage base, you get a thunderstorm up in the hills, you get a couple days of heavy rain up there, that river floods real fast. But it also comes down real fast. So if we get to June and we haven't gotten much rain, you'll be able to walk across the Westfield River in most places and the water won't be above your knees. So this is very accessible and very studyable if you, yeah, like we always tell our
cross
kids.
the bridges because it's all mud.
Yeah, there's places where it's muddy, but there's a lot of places where it's just sand. If you do go out in the river though, wear a pair of nice sandals or something. Don't go barefoot in that river. There's 250 years of human, garbage in there. When I say garbage, I'm talking about broken bottles. I think there were colonial.
These things are great.
Yeah, they're just good to wear. So let's keep going. So there's our fish wear that I'm very proud to introduce you guys to. If you didn't know it was there, and most likely you didn't because I found it and I've never heard anybody else talking about it. So there's our river. We're looking up the river toward Westfield there. There's the Berkshires in the
This
distance.
is cut from the, on the right, this is the cut where the railroad track is.
Yeah, there's the railroad track, and there's the left side, the Agawam side, Coleman Mountain side, and there's the East Mountain side with the quarry. Give it another click, and you can see we come down the river now, and we're going to go around what I remember a teacher told me in 4th grade is the heel of West Springfield. West Springfield kind of looks like a boot, and that's the heel. So the river is going south, and then all of a sudden it turns and it goes back north. And this area between the train tracks right there and the heel, this is where the Amerindians had their largest fishing camps. And those camps were there for a long time, not in the same place. They moved them. If you want to go walking around looking for arrowheads, that's a place to do it. I found a lot of arrowheads there. And I don't have a problem finding an arrowhead, and I don't have a problem sharing it with you, and you going down and finding an arrowhead, because it's pretty cool to find an arrowhead, and it's 8,000 years old, you pick it up and go, wow, really cool. Otherwise, UMass gets it. You know what UMass does with them? They stick them in drawers,
And no one sees
and
them.
they leave them there forever.
Yeah.
They might as well just stay in the ground. Just go, yeah, you get it, you can give it to somebody for Christmas. Here's an arrowhead. At least it's real. Give it a click, right? So here again, we got the heel west side, another one of my maps. Give it another click. Another map showing us Robinson State Park. And the fish weir is right about there, right? So there's Robinson. You can see it's easily accessible from the Robinson State Park side. Give it another click.
Another large tree, by the way. In the spring, you see people always think of dandelion.
All over the water.
All over the water, all over the roads. It's cottonwood. These things get massive. Here their leaves, they're really aspen.
Beautiful leaves that quake in the wind.
Right, and with these beautiful furrowed bark. And man, you see anywhere, now cowboys are all over the country. You'll see these if you go to Arizona in the deserts and stuff. Anywhere where there's a river, you go down any of the rivers in out west, you'll see these guys growing right next to them.
And what I care about is what kind of mushrooms grow under them. Give it a click. And here's our, one was talking about this thing the whole time. It's like, that was do the call. I can't do the call.
I can do lots of them.
I was like, but the call. But the point is, he's going, there's a vireo around here.
These are not.
There's a vireo.
These are not sexually dimorphic. Males and females look almost exactly the same. There are lots of different vireos here. This by far is the most drab. So, but you see them in cottonwood trees and the cottonwood leaves. And the best part about this bird is its call. It has a warble of a call. I should play the tape. But very distinguishable by the call. You're probably never going to see it because they like to be way at the top of cottonwoods.
Yeah, way at the top. Like when you look at your fish in a fish tank, some stay at the top, some are in the middle, some are at the bottom. I never knew that about birds. Who told me that? And I'm like,
That's called a niche.
It
By the
makes
way,
sense.
so you might have this habitat. The habitat is the river, and the niche is, let's say, a tree. So you got birds at the top of the tree, birds at the bottom of the tree in the understory, birds that occupy the trunk, birds that occupy the lower canopy, birds that occupy the middle canopy. That's called niche. You don't overlap. So you can have multiple species in one tree, all in different spots.
cool. Isn't that cool? He teaches me stuff all the time. And there he is. We're going down the river, and he says, look at the turtle. He goes, I go, it looks like a pan. And he goes, could be a snapper. I go, nope, I think it's one of them wood turtles. I said it first. He goes like this, he goes, wood turtles? Them things are threatened. They're eating around here.
They're threatened in the United States.
They're
I'm
threatened.
sorry, in Massachusetts.
Them things are in trouble.
They're threatened because we'll do this kind of thing. Hey, I'm going to give you some money. Can you go out and find me some wood turtles? And they take
Sell them
and
in
they sell them to
reptile
places like China and
markets.
stuff.
Garbage.
No, this reptile, I did an internship in the Berkshires on, and in the summer, they're found on land. So they go and they eat berries and worms and different things. But in the winter, they go into the water. And they stay in the water for like 3 or 4 months. As soon as it gets cold, that's where they go because they can't thermoregulate, right? They can't keep their body temperature above freezing. So they go in the water where the temperature stays above freezing, and they breathe through their cloaca, which we would call their anus. So they've got really thin skin and highly vascularized, so the oxygen just comes from the water right into the animal.
Cool.
When I was studying them, we had only one with a transmitter, so we got we had one for only about a year, and then in December, it was right around my birthday, December 15th, me and a friend are out there, and we go up, we found the female, and she was in a pool. It was probably about that deep. I know it was probably about that deep, because we finally saw her, and she was mating. So we had to get the other turtle. And so we drew straws. I got the small straw, so I had to go in. So it's snowing, we get ice all along the river, and here's me stripping down, going in, and I get to the water out here, and I'm like, I can't grab the turtle. I can't. So I gotta go, sploosh, and I drop the turtle. So I have to go back and sploosh, and I drop it, and then I went back.
They were mating. Why were you bothering
And the
them?
male wouldn't let go of the female, so I had to fight, and then I had to take her out, and we put a radio transmitter on, and we released them back. Who's going to interrupt us, Sam?
There are kids here.
By the way, you can tell a male turtle from a female
There's
turtle.
our wood turtle.
Yep. You tell a male? No. It's called Clipmis insculta. It used to be
now-
called Clipmis insculta.
You show us the next one, Rich.
And that scarlet leg.
Beautiful. This next one you can kind of see the bottom of the turtle. But he was all fired up. He was just as fired up about the turtle as I was about finding the fish weir
Right.
and getting the drone photos. And it was him, it was karma. You know, he was getting thanked for helping me. You know what I mean?
The plastron, the bottom shell of this turtle, if it's a female, it's flat. If it's a male, it's curved.
And how many of these have you seen?
I've only seen, I think, 3 in my life, 4 in my
It
life.
is life. And here we got this in West
I've been
Side.
all over. I worked with the Audubon Society.
So they're very rare.
So the males is concave, right? I think it's concave, and the females is flat,
So they fit together.
so they can breathe.
Whoa.
So you can fit
I
in
didn't
top
just
of
fall
it.
off the turnip truck.
Yeah.
Go ahead, we're gonna move. So you get down there, you know, we're not even around the corner yet. You've got the remains of the old choo-choo train that used to go to Tariffville. So there's the old abutment. Give it another click. Rocket Copter, watch those. These are cool. We love them.
And South Bears Efforts?
Yes, I mean, these all alone.
Tufts and sedge?
Tufts, yeah. And then we go around, and that's what it looked like back in the day, you know, before they put that. Okay, and then we just keep going. Now we're going around the corner. We went around the heel, and we did some fishing. There's nice, beautiful pools and all the rest. And now you get into what you could call Mittenegg Reservoir. This is all water that's being held back by the Mittenegg Dam. Give it another click. And here's my brother standing at the top of the Mittenegg Dam, which a lot of you probably have never seen. That's where I used to hang out when I was a high school kid. We used to swim, we used to jump off that thing. We were always down there. Give it another click. And you can see that dam was built in like 1847, I think it is, or is it 58? I can't remember exactly, but it's made of wood. It's got, you know, it's wood, and it's got some concrete. It's got some concrete and some eye-bar holding it together now. Now, luckily, it's not actually holding back any water, because the reservoir has silted in, so if it were to break, no one would even know. But it presented a terrible obstacle to all the anadromous fish. They couldn't get by it. And I remember my uncle telling me, who just died a few months ago, my uncle was our great, like our second father. We walked, he told me, he goes, you gotta go check out the Westfield River. And I remember walking to the edge where he was standing and looking down, and there's a school of probably 100,000 shad. It was like something out of a movie, just swimming in a big circle. And I'm looking down at them, and being me, I get, I'm fishing with, when you're fishing for shad, you use a dart. It's a little shad dart. And back in, you see that show, that 70s show, and everybody says, oh, the 70s, what a time to live. That seems like a fun time to live. Well, nobody had any money in the 70s, if you remember. It was kind of a rotten time to live. And these little darts that you use to catch shad, they cost a lot of money. They were 3 for $1, which was a huge amount of money if you were me in 1977. So I would lose these on a rock. Didn't stop me. I got my goggles and I went down there and I would pull them off the bottom, and then I figured out I could sell them to my goofy buddies and even paint them up and all the rest. And then remember what the Westfield River was. You guys remember what the Westfield River was? I remember driving by the Westfield River in the 80s, and it was the color of your shirt. It was bright red, it would be purple, it would be yellow, it would be green, it would be magenta. Why? You know why, right? Because Strathmore up in Russell and Orinoco would dump their vats. They made high-end paper, and once a year they'd clean their vats, and they were allowed to dump that dye right into the river. And I remember the riverbed, going by the riverbed on the way to college. What color is it going to be today? It's purple. Tomorrow it's green. I mean, it was every color of the rainbow. And also remember, the hill towns did not have, maybe they did, but I don't think they. The environmental laws weren't that strict, so there was sewage going right into that river. And I remember going, this is me, I don't care, I'm not shy. I remember diving for these things, 3 for $1, that's a lot of money. Coming out of the river with my goggles and like a hunk of toilet paper hanging off my going. It was worth it, I saved $1, right? Anyways, go ahead, Race. So there's the dam, and this is the new fish ladder. That fish ladder was put in 15 years ago. 15 years ago, the very first shad and salmon and herring and alewives got over that dam for the first time in 150 years. It's an awesome time to be alive if you're into ecology and conservation and West Springfield, the history of our area. It's beautiful.
We should get like Viv to allow us to get the kids to tour.
Yeah, we could definitely get the mayor. The mayor was in my class.
Cool, it'd be cool to have people go up and see that. I think they probably
Put the pressure on. He's into it. Give it another click. So we proceeded down the West Springfield side of the river, and another clip. And as we were moving, you can see the river's kind of channeled up. We had to navigate and negotiate. Steve is out of the boat here because we had to get out of the boat and carry over a couple of shallow spots. Give it another click. Steve caught himself a nice smallmouth bass there. Yeah, here we go, 1-0 lead on me. Give it another click. We come to a wing dam. There's 2 wing dams that have been put in since the fish ladder. Give it another click. And we'll forget the arrowwood. And we'll forget the speckled alder. Nice trees. So we fished under the wing dam. We had some fun under the wing dam, and then we heard the call of, give it a click, the Louisiana water thrush. It was annoying. Give it another click. And then the kingbird was out there. We never saw the kingbird, but pretty soon we came into the area. I'll give it another click, Rach. We got the mitneg.
I saw the kingbird
factory complex. How many of y'all remember when that guy was there? Most people don't. The kids today, I tell them that factory was something I grew up with.
Yeah.
I remember when they tore that thing down. Now we just got this portion here.
If you go down there, you can still see the old cement.
Yeah, you can see the old bulkhead for it. Yeah, but here we are. We're coming down from this direction. Notice this picture, guys. Notice the trees that don't exist on the top of the hill. So think about this picture being taken in maybe 1880 or whatever, and notice how the trees are gone. And that they are literally, if you think about allergies today, like where are we getting our allergies? We're living in a world that is full of trees. Many of these trees were brought from other places to New England. Like think about all the Japanese maples and the Japanese cherries and Chinese cherry trees that we have. I get crushed by allergies. Anyways, forget that. Keep going. And there's our boy, Horace Moses, who bought the one in Winoco and the Strathmore Mill here in West Side creates this awesome. He also is responsible for the Big E and the 4-H Club and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we should do a talk on Horace Moses someday. Great industrialist who does a lot of good things for his workers and the community and the nation as a whole. Give it another click. And there's Middag. Look at that. It's got its very own map. It had its own post office. Give it another click. It's got its own railroad station. Wow, Middag was something else back then. Give it another click. Look at that. Postcards from Middag. A postcard for the Strathmore Mill. A postcard for the choo-choo train. The Western Railroad. This is where you'd stop if you were going to the Bear Hole Resort in 1895.
It's not the Western
They called it the Western Railroad, or the Railroad to the Moon. It went from Boston to Albany, so it was going west.
Going west.
So there's the Midnight Station. Give it a click, and this is where he almost gets me killed. Because you'll notice that the river swings around and goes through some rapids that you don't notice if you're going over the bridge.
Correction should be this where I tried to kill him.
Not that easy to kill people. So we go to the next slide, and there's the factory. I put the drone up, got some drone shots. Give it another click. More factory, and there's the dam way up there. Here we are, going down the river. Notice we got some rapids. Notice the Widowmaker right there. And I go to them.
You almost killed me too, Stan.
But you kind of went like this.
I was trying to keep it.
Watch the next slide, people. Oh! Notice the hand. Notice how he just nonchalantly lets go of that thing, and it almost took my head off. Luckily, I was a state champion at the West
The
Side.
picture is not telling the story because
That's with Tim Daggett. It wasn't all about Daggett. It was about
he
me.
is right about where I am. And in between is a camera that's getting the footage. So it almost killed the camera.
It almost killed the camera. I had to stop the
Oh my
camera. I
gosh.
was in the canoe,
That was
and I had to
awful.
protect my own head, man. This thing's valuable. Give it another click, Rachel. So now we go under the bridge, and we're going through some pretty good rapids. Boom, boom. Right now, one more. And then we hit one seriously. We took a lot of water.
So we had two people over here. One was his former student who was going, hey,
Yeah, we go through the rapids. We almost died. I actually had to bleep the video because I let fly an expletive, as they say.
He said,
I couldn't help myself. I almost died.
It was awful.
And we get through the rapids, and there's this guy and his wife on the shore yells over, Mr. Skivak! Mr. Skivak! Last time I saw this kid, he was in a fight with another kid in the old junior high school. I had to yank him off the kid. Like, Mr. Skivak was one of my favorite teachers. Give it a click. So we continue down the river. I got me a nice smallmouth there. And another click, we come to some seriously, if you ever tried this, there's some areas you gotta be careful of where there's snacks, log snacks. And I mean, you can be careful, negotiate, take your time, but beautiful. It's just like the trees are even bigger down here. Give it another click. And you can see we've gone down and around the corner, and there's an island. And we took the outside and then the inside route right in there. We could have gone three ways, and we snuck in and around. Give it another click. Now we got the yellow throat.
It's actually metamorphic stand.
Metamorphic.
Yep.
Give it another click.
Right there.
Oh, tell us about the
We
swallows.
got 3 different swallows now. If we look back under the bridge, there used to be a colony of cliff swallows.
I think they're still there because I was on that bridge yesterday and I saw them.
Haven't been there for 10, 15 years.
There were some swallows.
No, these two will nest in the rivers in banks. It's called a bank swallow, and you can see this is what we call his money belt, and that's one of the ways you identify bank swallows from all the other swallows. It's a rough-winged swallow. They look fairly similar, not sitting, but the female is brown, so looking at them, it's hard to tell. You gotta be pretty good to be able to pick out a rough-winged swallow from all these others, as you got 100 of them flying around all the time, because you're just constantly moving.
Anybody can do it. He can do it. He's good at doing that.
They're good. This got some iridescence, it's a beautiful bird, but these are insect eaters. And they will go wherever you have a hatch of insects, swarms of insects.
And there's a lot of them on the river.
And so that's where you often find them over the river or over fields where this guy nests. But if you go down to the river, you will actually, if you're not very active, you might get a couple hundred different of these birds, and you might get 4 or 5 species.
And then our wood ducks.
Crazy. This duck right here is the most common duck in the country. But we don't see them too often because they're shy. They hang out in lakes, ponds, rivers, but always away from people. And so when you get near them, they fly away. Male, female, called wood ducks because they actually nest in big holes in trees 30, 40 feet off the ground.
They're really fast, they're hard to shoot.
And they make this, and they make this.
Look at him go. I told you he'd do it. Go ahead, Rich. So we got our skunk cabbages.
Something you might not know, Stan. This is the flower. And they actually create heat when they're coming up and they melt the snow. This is one of the first plants.
I actually was investigating that this spring when I was out foraging.
These leaves smell, right? They smell like skunk. You've all probably smelled them. So put them in your mouth. Put them in your mouth. They will burn you. They will give you a chemical burn
toxic.
because they have this stuff called calcium oxalate in it. But the Amerindians used to take these and dry them out, which would destroy the calcium oxalate, and then they would smoke them. They would smoke them.
Sumac, skunk cabbage.
They would smoke this because they would use it as a medicinal herb to get rid of chest congestion.
I guess we should try it. It may work on the corona.
I never tried it.
So we continue on down the river. We're heading for the main river. Ospreys all over that river. You'll see them everywhere. And then the fish hawk. Ferns on the river
Couple
banks.
species of riparian fern, though.
Fiddleheads.
Yep, sensitive fern and cinnamon
If
fern.
you like to forage for fiddleheads, one of the best places to do it is along the river because the tufts get covered by the floodwaters and they come up last. So if you want to find fiddleheads on dry land, you got to get out early. And it's still kind of crappy. It's like April and cold, but in May and June you'll still be getting fiddleheads along the rivers if you want to walk along the riverbank.
Cinnamon ferns are some of the tallest species of fern in the country. They're going to be that big, huge. Sensitive fern gets their name because as soon as they get across, they die. They're done.
And they cry when a poem is read.
They might.
Click. And now we're going to move, we're just going to kind of getting late. Sandbar willows all over that river, give it another click. And so here we are now, we're sneaking along, and we're going to pull out right in here. So we didn't go, we went to the last rapids. We decided it was getting too late, it was almost dark, and we decided to pull out, but go ahead, one more click. As we go along that lower stretch, there's a homeless encampment on the banks down there, which is something to know. When I was growing up, I used to bring the middle school kids on a field trip there when I taught middle school. And we would go down there and we'd fish and we'd get a river cleanup and all the rest. Well, today there's a homeless encampment there. Now it's kind of interesting to think about it because if you think about the river, you had the Amerindian people living there way back when because it was warmer and it provided them with food and shelter and a lot of other people are still using it for a similar reason, maybe just to get away from it. So be careful down there, though. I always recommend that if you go down there, you go down there with someone else. And here's Steve going through the last rapids of the river, splash, took in some water, and now we're saying, see you later, everybody. If you click it one more time, if you want to, there's the biggie. Our plan was, and what we would really like to do, we were talking about this, is we would love to see the town put in a kayak ramp up at the parking lot that we launched out.
And a real portage.
Yeah, portage, so people could easily bring a kayak or a canoe down there. And then a couple different places where you could pull it easily. That trip took us from 2 in the afternoon until about 8:30 at night. 2:15 to 8:30. We weren't going really fast, and then at other times we started going really fast. We took our time in the beginning, and the sun started going down, we started moving faster. The hardest part of that, and we didn't show you here, was getting around that dam. There's no easy path around that dam. And so we tied the canoe to a rope, and we lowered the canoe down, and we made a couple trips, but we were able to do it. And it was a lot of fun to do. If you try it, make sure the river's at the right height. You don't want to do that when the river's too high. Right now, the river's at a good height, but you got to look at it. So the best thing is to go to the bridge and look and imagine. You can have one of those job lot kayaks that you pay $250 for. Just remember, if you fall off that kayak and hit your head on a rock, you're going to be in trouble. So they make these things called helmets for that sort of thing if you want to do that. We
I hope it's wear a life preserver.
Yeah, and we're a life preserver. You saw he had the life preserver. I was going to bring it. I was going to make him wear the life preserver here. Because we're a safety concern, you know. But it's a beautiful river, and it connects you to the West Springfield natural history, you know, and historic past.
And we're only here, Stan, because Rachel picked us up, otherwise we could still be down
Yeah,
there.
she came and got us, otherwise we would have still been down there.
Yeah.
We would have just joined the homeless camp. I could have been the
We
kid
could
in the homeless camp. Show them how to fish.
Yeah.
Show them, give me another click here. And you can see the river continues down from where we left it. And we left it like right in here, and it continues on down. Well, I'm not in the wrong spot. We left it right here, and it continues on down. You can see the oxbows you read. Those are old oxbows. These seeds that you see. So those are wet areas, or in some cases ponds. There's the Big E ponds, right? So that's a meander. That's where the river at one point was going around in a corner, right? There's rivers like the oxbow up there in NoHo, like Northampton. As the river gets close to its mouth and gets toward its estuary, there's a lot of sediment, and the river begins to meander.
If
So
you go in the
people
eastern
learn to
gate,
see it.
if you go on the eastern gate, Big E, when you first go in, there's some ponds on either side. That's
That's what we're
exactly
looking
that's
at.
exactly, it's an old oxbow.
Those ponds are an oxbow where the river used to flow. So, and you can actually see a sandbar right there below the power plant, and that sandbar is where the river actually entered back in the 1840s and 50s. One more click. So if you're interested in watching the video, it's on my my YouTube channel, Fishing Historic Places, and like and subscribe. But we enjoyed having you, and you got any questions? I mean, we probably got 10 minutes before it's 8:30, and we got to pack up, right? And you're gonna do the raffle? Oh, the raffle!
Well done.
Yes! Excitement.